Hi everyone. Today I want to talk about a concept called the second party switch, which, if you don't know, it's the idea that the Republican Party and the Democrat Party are trading places when it comes to economic positions. So basically, the Republican Party is shifting further left economically, and I mean, of course, evidence of this is like Trump. He's way to the left. He's way more liberal than like Romney or George Bush economically. While at the same time, he's about the same socially, or even more right wing socially than them. So, and at the same time, the Democrat Party, now there's lots of there's lots of like former Republican, so-called RINO Republicans who are now like siding with the Democrat Party. Like in Florida, they're running Charlie Crist for governor. He's a former Republican. He was a former Republican governor of the state. Now he's running as a Democrat to try to beat DeSantis. I feel kind of bad for the left in Florida because now their only choice is between a RINO Republican and a Trump Republican. But a little off topic. And now you see like Michael Bloomberg, the former Republican mayor of New York City, who running for the Democrat nomination. Now you see, see people like Adam Kinzinger. You see rhinos in Wisconsin, who vote for Biden. Sorts of thing, that sort of thing. So the Democrat Party, since a large part of their coalition will now be like, right-leaning independents, and like, RINO Republicans. So that's going to shift the Democrat Party to the right economically, while at the same time they're getting even more left-wing socially. They used to be the party of safe, rare, and available, and now they're abortion on demand without apology. I'm not trying to let my opinion. I'll try not to let my opinions get through this whole thing because I understand that turns people off. But no, this is just objective fact. I live in Chicago. I see, there's signs everywhere in the street. There's saying like we want abortion on demand without apology, partial birth abortion, have it all be legal, and this is like just Republican Democrat Party just keeps going left and left, and now, socially, I mean. But economically, not so much. And this is, and I just wanted to explore just the effects of that. And some of them are pretty surprising. And I don't hear this getting talked about much, because as we all know, Hispanics are shifting rapidly to the right and trending rapidly to the right. It's in places like Florida where they trended to the right by like 12 points. And in South Texas where there were like 90-point swings to the right. There's just absurd amounts, like that. Trump, even, the same guy who's like supposedly like the most racist person on earth. He did better with every minority than Bush, than Romney, than McCain, than any Republican for the past 60 years. So like it really doesn't make a ton of sense if you look at it like that, but I'm going to explain why that actually does make a lot of sense. And the reason is because Hispanics and minorities and Hispanics, blacks, Asians, and immigrants, not both immigrants and fresh off the boats and even like long-term, descendants of immigrants. These aren't socially liberal people. Like, when was the last time you heard about like a Mexican woman educating you about, or telling you to respect your pronouns or something like that, or I don't know, encouraging their telling their kids it's okay to be gay or something like that. I'm not saying it's not okay to be gay. I'm just saying like Hispanics minorities just aren't a bastion of that kind of stuff. Not exactly the epitome of, just social progressivism, that kind of stuff. And like, yeah, like when was the last time you heard about? Would you be comfortable going into an immigrant community and like I don't know, flashing, like a rainbow flag, or wearing a G-string if you're a male or something like that, or I don't know, or having a beard as a woman or something, or telling people you're non-binary, like, it just goes without saying, these people, minorities vote Democrat because they're economically left-wing, and same with the Rust Belt too. That's why Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Minnesota, Ohio, Iowa, they're all, they vote Democrat all those years because of economics. They're not voting because they like, because they agree with, they them pronouns or stuff like that. So I'm just saying, if the Republican Party is becoming more left wing, and I think what this literally means is, today we see, like, the Donald Trumps, the Ron DeSantis's, the Youngkins, the Candace Owens, but like eventually, in like maybe 2040, 2050, you'll start seeing like Tulsi Gabbard, as like the Republican nominee. Someone who's left-wing economically and right-wing socially. And then eventually you'll start to see, instead of like Joe Biden's and Barack Obama's and Hillary Clinton's, you'll start to see Adam Kinzingers as like the Democrat nominees. And like, yeah, so yeah, that's my prediction. I know it's kind of bold, but yeah, that's what I think our future is going to be. And I think that's actually going to be great for the Republicans because, because that's where the Overton window is shifting. There's lots of people who are economically left and socially right, but there's not a ton of people who are economically right and socially left. I mean, well, there obviously are. I mean, in Illinois, especially like Lake County up here, there's lots of that kind of people. I kind of interned for, I volunteered for a RINO politician back in 2014. His name was Bob Dold with D-O-L-D, not Bob Dole from Kansas, but Bob Dold. He's kind of the definition of a RINO. He's fiscally conservative and socially liberal. He's pro-abortion. He's pro-gay marriage, all that kind of stuff. Which you kind of, like, in those RINO districts, it is, you kind of have to be that way to win. But, that's their brand, and I think that's going to become the Democrat Party of the future. But there's, country-wise, there's really not a ton of people like that. So that's going to actually screw over the Dems, and that's going to benefit Republicans. So, yeah, so I think, going back to my point about minorities, since minorities, they're economically left and they're socially right, that's exactly the type of, that's a recipe for perfection for them. Like, as the Republican Party becomes that kind of a party. So I think then, like, not only is the Hispanic trend rightward is going to continue, but also, like, Candace Owens has been floating the idea of Blexit. Like, she's purposely trying to reach out to black people and trying to get them to vote Republican. But, like, I don't think this is, like, necessarily, Republicans don't need Blexit, because I feel like, first of all, like, I would echo other people's talking points, which is that, black people aren't that much of a voter base, and they're already so Democrat that you can't really get them to turn much to the Republicans. And you'd be way better off focusing on Hispanics. And I'm not intending this in a patronizing way. I'm not saying black people don't matter, but I'm actually saying that black people will actually are going to go Republican on their own. Like, you don't need efforts to reach out to them. I think it's going to be natural because black people are also, socially right as fuck. It's not okay to. When has it ever been okay to be black and gay? That sort of thing. So I think. So that means black people are going to start shifting right. They already are, but they're just going to increase as the two parties switch economically. And then, literally, there's been talk about, like, lots of people back between the 2016 and 2020 elections, they were saying, like, Florida is going to be safe blue in, by 2030. Because, like, or even, like, people saying Georgia is going to be safe blue, which it kind of is for a while, but because it's getting more diverse, because both of these states are getting more diverse. But if the if the parties do switch economically, then I think this is actually going to not be the case, because immigrants are going to become more attracted to the sort of message of, social conservatism and economic liberalism. I mean, leftism. So, if anything, that's actually going to be a recipe for perfection with these with, like, immigrants. So therefore these places getting more diverse is actually going to benefit Republicans, like, provided that at different rates, because you also need time to let them switch and figure out their way, and you need time for the Republican Party and Democrat Party to figure out their way. But this is not going to screw over Republicans. These places getting more immigrant-ified or minoritified. And I think it's actually going to be a net positive, believe it or not. I'm probably the first person who's going to actually make this point, but yeah, I think this is the case. So I think, yes, you will eventually get to the point where you will start to see, like, Muslims, like, voting Republican, but a majority of Muslims voting Republican, for the party that in 2016 called for them to be banned. Yes. Yes, I believe so. I believe there will be a time when Muslims vote Republican, Asians vote Republican, Chinese immigrants vote Republican, Native Americans even. I assume they're not very socially liberal. Either. So that means the Republican coalition in the future is going to be, like, by 2050, is going to be, immigrants, minorities, but they're not going to. That doesn't mean that the Republicans are going to become the party of the minorities and the Democrats are going to become the party of the whites, because the white working class people of the Rust Belt, they're also, socially right and economically left. So the coalition is going to be, immigrants and minorities and white working class people, which it kind of already is, but it's going to be more so of that. And then on the Democrat side, the coalition is going to be white, like, educated, rich, wealthier, more well-to-do people, like college-educated people, suburbanites, graduate school, people in big, like, heavy professions that they had to go to school for 200 years for, that sort of thing. And also probably people from the very social liberal communities, like trans people, gay people, who else? Like pedophiles. just had to say, just had to get it out there. But that sort of thing. So how will this affect the electoral map? There's been talk of I do agree that Georgia is going to be like safe blue in the near future, but I think I'm going to revise my prediction on that. I don't think it's permanently gone. I think that if the parties switch, like eventually, maybe by like 2050, Georgia could become competitive again instead of going permanently safe blue and becoming the California of whatever. And I don't even think California is going to become competitive if the parties switch, because people there are also economically liberal. So I mean, it's going to be a recipe for disaster that the Democrats are going to become the party of RINOs like Adam Kinzinger and nominate Adam Kinzinger one day for president against Tulsi Gabbard. So I think by 2050, Georgia can become competitive again, and then it could actually flip red. Not only flip red, but it would eventually start trending red and heavily, because then you'll get like the rural white voter, right working class voters, and then the diversity that right now is the Republicans' downfall in the state will actually become their a blessing. So like the Atlanta area, you'll start to see, the suburbanites are going to go full on blue, but the immigrants are going to go full on red, and the rural area is going to go full on red. And I think the state is actually going to go red again by the 2050s. And it'll keep going that way. And Florida, is going to get more diverse. So it's already trending Republican as we speak. And actually, I feel like as it gets more diverse, that's actually going to be a net positive for Republicans. And it's going to become safer. And Texas, I think it will flip sometime in the next decade. And then it will be competitive for a while. But then, Texas, people, I don't know if Texas is going to be more of like a perma-blue state. I don't think so, because for the same reason that these two states won't become perma-blue. Since they're, the immigrant and the minorities, Texas is getting very diverse too. That's actually going to be a blessing for Republicans. So by the 2050s, you start to see Texas become safe red again. And Arizona too. Well, I don't know. I mean, Arizona, it's also like getting more diverse. It's also like a very, getting more diverse is going to help Republicans in the long run. It's going to screw them over the short run, but then Arizona also is getting a lot of like, the white, rich, like, educated people from California who are going to Arizona. So who knows? I mean, Arizona is going to become like safe blue for a while, just like Georgia, but then it also could become competitive again. I mean, who knows? But I doubt that. I mean, I think Arizona, I'll just put like it's going to probably be competitive in the future. I mean, I don't know if it would ever become perma red again, but it might not become perma blue. Stuff like that. And obviously, like the Rust Belt, these are economically liberal, socially conservative, so they're going to become perma red as fuck. And also, these are national populist states, that are economically left and socially right. So all of these states here would be like perma red. And then actually you'll start to see, by the 2050s, especially in an election, if it's like Adam Kinzinger versus Tulsi Gabbard, because like states like Illinois, they're also like people here are both economically liberal and socially liberal, so they'll be torn between which party to support. So Illinois could become a swing state, which is a blessing for me because I live in Illinois and currently my vote has no power whatsoever. I always debate just going north to Wisconsin and just like renting an apartment for a month so I could literally just have literally just the ability to vote in a state where my vote actually has power. That sort of thing. And literally California too. I mean, they're socially liberal as fuck, but they're also economically liberal, so that's going to create an ideological crisis for them. Even Oregon and Washington, these, traditionally these kinds of states are going to turn competitive by the 2050s. Hawaii, they're also like, but on the other hand, like Virginia, they like RINO Republicans. They're economically moderately left wing, but they're also like socially left. Like so Virginia, but Virginia then is probably going to be safe blue, but it might become competitive again if they start to have an ideological crisis like those states. And New Hampshire actually is an interesting case. New Hampshire, people have been talking about Republicans flipping New Hampshire, and I think that's possible in like the short run, like the next decade or two, for like maybe once or twice. But I think this is actually going to be a recipe. The party switch is going to be a recipe for disaster for Republicans in New Hampshire. It's actually going to be perfect for Democrats because New Hampshireites, they're more fiscally conservative than the rest of their New England neighbors, but they are just as, if not more, socially liberal, which benefits Democrats, and that's why they keep voting Democrat. So, if anything, if the Democrats become the party of Adam Kinzingers, of people who are economically right and socially left, that's actually going to make New Hampshire a safe blue state, like forever, permanent. It's going to become like Wyoming. Like California currently margins, like probably something like that. And what other kinds of, like you might start to see. I think you will start to see Vermont. You'll see times when Vermont was competitive and New Hampshire is safe blue. Because Vermonters, they love Bernie Sanders. They're social liberal as fuck, but they're also economically liberal as fuck. So then if you have like Tulsi Gabbard versus Adam Kinzinger, I think Vermont would be a swing state. Like I don't think Vermont would be. I think it could even flip red. I think it probably will. I mean, what appeal does Adam Kinzinger have in Vermont? I think I have a prediction: red Vermont in 2050. Yes. And all of these states which are socially. But on the other hand, you could start to see, Alaska. They're not. Alaska, they're socially right wing and economically right wing. So that also means Alaska will be a swing state in the future, in the 2050s. A lot of these, just these traditional Republican, Romney type states, North Dakota, South Dakota, Idaho, Montana, honestly, Montana, they're socially conservative as fuck, but they're not. I don't know if they're necessarily that economically conservative because they nearly voted for Obama in 2008 too, and so I think Montana will probably become the safest red state in the region, even because they're pretty populist, and Wyoming is I would think that they'd be generic conservative type state, but then again, Liz Cheney lost the primary here so badly, so I think Wyoming would stay permanently red. And I think Colorado, people there, they're kind of like Vermont. They love Bernie Sanders. They're economically left and socially left, so that means they're going to become a swingy state. Alabama is national populist, so it will be perma red. But Mississippi, well, I previously said Mississippi was going to become a swing state by the 2050s because of the black population growing. But I actually think that if the blacks keep shifting red, because they're socially conservative and economically left, that actually would probably mean Mississippi's going to be perma red. So a little revision from my last time. And South Carolina, You know, it will. I think it will flip in the next 2 decades and have a swingy period. But I think, given the black population, if the blacks keep shifting red, then South Carolina is going to keep being red permanently. And North Carolina's got a lot of blacks too, so same story here. I think they're going to follow the same trend. North Carolina is going to flip a little bit and becomes, and it's always swinging a little bit, but it's eventually going to keep. It's probably going to keep its red. No, it's going to become like perma red, like 2004 margins, where like Democrats got creamed in that state. Whereas Louisiana, but it's also got a lot of black people, so they're going to shift red. So that means Louisiana, I think it will have like a flip period where it has an ideological crisis, because they are a generic conservative state, but they also got a lot of black people who are and minorities who are shifting red. So that probably means Louisiana might, after its swingy period, it might go back to being red. Whereas, I don't think there's a ton of black people in like Oklahoma, or is there? Definitely not in Kansas, is there? Kansas is trending heavily blue. I mean, so Kansas is becoming more urbanized, so it's probably going to be perma blue in the future. Utah, socially conservative and economically conservative. It's going to become swingy because it's going to be torn between the two parties. Nebraska. Well, the second district is going to become perma blue because they love, the new Democrat recipe. The RINO Democrats. Well, the rest of the state, I mean, they're probably going to become swingy, all of them, because they're, well, hey, no, probably like the state. There's lots of sort of rural as fuck too, so like the first district, I don't know. These are also very rural states though, so it's also weird. I don't know. I'll just put it as that. Maybe this is a little overpowered for Republicans because now it's like they already have enough safe states to win, and Democrats have like nothing. Oklahoma, but Trump also won every one of their counties, so it's probably going to be permanent. So that's yeah. I just gave the Republicans the victory. New Mexico, heavy Hispanic population. Number red, Nevada. They're very populist, but they're also like Red Eagle said they're libertarian, which means if you're libertarian, that means you're economically right and socially left. So that means you're Democrat, but I don't know. That doesn't really line up with trends, but I think given the topic of this video, that means Nevada could actually become like a New Hampshire type state. I mean, yeah, it doesn't make a ton of sense, but I mean, I don't know. I don't actually think Nevada is going to go blue. I doubt it. I mean, there's lots of populist support there. Are they really that libertarian? I mean, doubt it. I mean, they keep voting for Biden and like Democrats by narrow margins, even though they're trending heavily right. So I'll put that as competitive. But also it's getting more diverse. So but okay, whatever. Either red or yellow, and then you can start to see some of these generic liberal states start to have their identity crises. And the first district is going to become safe. Well, yeah. And the second and the state of Maine is going to be a toss-up. In D.C., yeah, still safe. It's liberal as fuck. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe a little lopsided that all of these states are going to be permanent red, and it's yeah. See what I'm saying? That this party switch is going to screw over the Democrats because very few people are in the Overton window, like the whole economically right, socially left type of ideology. Like, it's just not very popular, so it's going to fuck you over in the long run. Yeah, just saying. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, drop a like. Thank you very much for watching, and Godspeed to all of you.